Yo, what is good, YouTube? Welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, we are going to be ranking the best power forwards in NBA 2K24 MyTEAM here on this tier list. This is the only video that I'm doing today besides leaks. I'll be going over the playbook here in a few hours, obviously, as well. But going to be breaking this down. We got about 37, I think, of the best power forwards in the game right now. So a lot of really good cards. If there's anybody I did leave off the list, feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know. I'll let you know where I'd put them on the list. But as a whole, I think this is a really good list and a pretty interesting one as well. So before we hop in, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 25,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I know 2K has been struggling and doing dumb stuff, but we're almost to 25K. We're less than 400 subscribers away, so I'd really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. So Alonzo Mourning, release is bad, and that does kind of tank this card a little bit. I would say, like, there's nobody on this list truly who is horribly awful, and because of that, I think the answer might actually be that Alonzo Mourning is D tier because of how poor his release is. Release is one of the more important things that is going to separate a lot of these cards at the power forward position, because a lot of them are very similar. Like, a guy like Alonzo has great stats and badges, just does not have a good release, and that takes away from his value significantly. Whereas an Alperen Sengun, not quite as good stat and badge wise as an Alonzo Mourning, but he's a couple tiers higher because his release is better and he has better SIGs, better movement, just as a slightly more complete card. Although I don't know if he actually deserves to be B tier at this point. I think I might go C. He does have Jamal Murray, or sorry, I think Harden behind the back. He's got pretty good SIGs for power forward, but I would say as a whole, I mean, his badges are decently complete. He's got off limitless, solid defender. I think he's still B. I think I'd go with that. AD is one of those guys who's definitely still good, but I don't think he's unbelievable. Like, he's not an S tier power forward, but he's probably a low A tier power forward. 6'10", good defender, could be a little bigger, but overall a good card who does a good amount of things well at the power forward position. So I'd say A tier is probably pretty fair for Anthony Davis. Bam Adebayo also feels like, I mean, he's probably the fourth best non-gambling power forward in the game. It's like, I think he's as good as Anthony Davis though. I think he might be a little better than AD, actually, because his release is better than AD's. That's the thing that separates those cards a little bit, because they're both very similar as shooters, playmakers, and defenders. Bam is an inch shorter, but has the better release. To me, that makes him a little bit better than AD. And I think Bam does deserve to be in that A tier. Bill Russell's also A tier. Again, only 6'10". None of these guys have unbelievably elite size, but Bill Russell has great SIGs, a great release that's very smooth. He's one of the better defensive wings, or sorry, power forwards in the game, and a lot of versatility, switchability. Just a really, really good card. Bull. Power forward, Bull is absolutely incredible. He's a little weaker at center because he struggles on the interior occasionally with golden move enforcer and some stuff like that. But at power forward, he doesn't really have that issue as much, and his shooting is phenomenal. His playmaking is phenomenal. At 7'2", his size is glitchy, and he gets some glitchy animations, and I think he's one of the best power forwards in the game. Definitely an S tier caliber player. Chad Holmgren is not great. He doesn't have great playmaking. His release could be a little better as well. Honestly, on this list, he is 7 foot, 7'1", whatever that is, and he's got good length, but I don't think he's unbelievably great. I think he's probably like low B. Chris Bosh is like super high B or low A. Honestly, he's on the same level as AD. I think Chris Bosh is better than AD. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, because his release I feel like is a little smoother than AD's. He's an inch taller, and I think SIGs wise he's a little better as well, if I remember correctly. AD actually probably deserves to be high B, and I think Bosh is probably A as of right now, but I don't know. Leitner is pretty good, but not like on this list. He's not a bad card. He's got pretty good stats and badges all the way around, but his release is pretty poor. He is 6'11", but he's not like an elite level playmaker or anything like that. Defensively, he's very solid, especially on the interior. He's got good shooting and dunking badges, but I don't think he's an elite level card at this point. I think he's probably D. I think Issel C because he is a really good shooter with a great release. But as a whole, I mean, animation wise, he's a little better than these two guys that are below him, but he's definitely not higher than C. I don't think this Issel card is anything special. At this point, D-Rob is B. He's 7'1" with great player build, solid release, but doesn't have much playmaking at all. He's defensively, he's very impactful. He's very good, but I think all the guys like AD and all the guys in A tier for sure are better than D-Rob in my opinion. So I think he's probably like high B, kind of like AD, and I think that's probably a fair spot to put him. DeMarcus Cousins is going to go C tier to me. His release could be a little better, and his SIGs were like pretty good for the time, but at this point just aren't great at the power forward position. He doesn't have unbelievable size. He's a good defender, but not the best defender in the game. I think he's fairly C tier. Dikembe Mutombo goes S for sure. He is the best card on this list, probably, honestly. Besides one guy, and he is 100% distinctly an S tier power forward. An unbelievable release. This card is better than a lot of the 100 overall bigs. In fact, he's better than almost all of them, I think, and I think he is S tier without a doubt. Dirk's release is very mediocre, and that puts him as an A tier card, despite the fact that he is a very, very good 7-foot every sig, pretty much every stat and badge power forward. His release could certainly be better, as well as honestly his fade. Like some of his animations just could be a bit better. I think he's super solidly A tier and a very good card, but I don't think he's actually going to crack my S tier. Domantas Sabonis is super mid. Does not have a great release. Yes, he's 7'1", but he doesn't have much playmaking. He's not the best defender either, especially at the 4. Going to struggle on the perimeter against a lot of these more athletic dudes, and I think he's also solidly D tier. Dwight Howard is a card that I really, really like because he actually has really good animations and he's great defensively and as a dunker, but his release is really poor. At the same time, I think he's better than all the guys we've seen in D tier, so I'm going to go low C for him. As much as I want to like this card, his release is pretty bad, and that does hold him back a lot, but I still think he's C tier. Emeka Okafor is a slightly worse version of Bill Russell, in my opinion, maybe even a slightly worse version of Bam Adebayo, although they're very similar. Does the same type of thing. Very good release, very solid defender, a little bit undersized, athletic, really solid all-around card, solid playmaker, just a good option. Evan Mobley's release, if it was better, I'd put him in A. It's not, but a still B. They gave him legit SIGs. He can move. He's got incredible defense, great length. This card is a stud, and he's high B, legitimately. He's on the same level as guys like D-Rob and AD to me. I think Evan Mobley's the best pink diamond power forward in the game by a mile, and I think he's solidly B tier. Giannis is a 7-footer with perfect SIGs, kind of like Dirk. Release could definitely be better, but he's more glitchy animation-wise than Dirk. He is. I think he's got to go like low S. We're still going to have a bunch of good cards left, but I don't know. Like 100 overall Giannis, I didn't even really want to include him because he's more of a small forward in my mind, but he is still a 7-foot absolute stud, and I think you got to go S tier for him. Akeem is really good. He is definitely my favorite of the Opal bigs outside of probably Bam at power forward. I would probably run Bam over Akeem, but Akeem still, I think, has to go high B at this point. He's on that AD Evan Mobley level to me a little bit more so because his playmaking could, well, I say that. He's probably better than Chris Bosh. I'm swapping this. We're going Akeem in A and we're going Bosh in B. I think that's what I'm going to go. Akeem's release, number 1, is really good. Defensive animation-wise, he's phenomenal. His size is very valuable, and he does much more playmaking-wise, fade-wise, all that type of stuff than a guy like D-Rob does, who has similar size. Even a guy like Chet, similar height-wise, who obviously does not have the same player build. So Akeem is definitely a stud, and I think he's A tier. Honestly, Embiid isn't great SIGs-wise, and his release could be a little bit better, but he's still super solid. I just think he's more of the Chris Bosh, Anthony Davis level as well, despite his size, because he doesn't have the playmaking that Akeem has. Doesn't have the fade that actually, wait, does he have a good fade? I forget what they if they gave him an updated fade. Let me check Embiid's fade because he might actually have a pretty good fade. No, he's got, well, normal's not horrible, but it could be a little better. His SIGs could be better. He's too heavy to do the behind the back. Fade isn't as good as Akeem's, in my opinion. His catch and shoot isn't as good as Akeem's either. I actually like Akeem better, and I think B tier is fair for him. 100 overall, Kareem is 7'2", amazing defensively. Yes, his release isn't incredible, but he has one of the glitchiest best player builds in the game. He is dominant on the interior. I feel like damn, I say that, but there's like 3 or 4 guys that I still think are better than him on this list, and I'm like looking at this list. I don't know. I think Kareem is the last guy in the 100 overall, or the last guy of the S tier, I should say. He's going to wind up being the lowest of the S tier, but I do think I'd still take him over guys like Bill Russell and Bam, who are in the A tier right now. I think Cat's fine, but nothing special. I'm moving Şengün down. I'm sorry. He's just not on that level, I don't think, anymore quite yet. Well, I say that. Is he better than Cat? Like, Cat's release is just not that good. He doesn't have great playmaking ability. He's got good stats and badges. He's a 7-footer. He's not bad. Like, he can shoot the ball fine. I think he's mid, though, honestly. I don't know. Free card, not horribly awful, but, like, on a list like this, I got to put some of these guys lower. I don't know. Maybe Czech gets moved down. I'm not even totally sure. I think KG doesn't quite crack the S tier to me. He's not quite as big as Giannis or Kareem or as glitchy animation-wise, and his release also isn't that good. I think as a 100 overall and as good as he is still A tier just like Dirk, but I wouldn't put him any higher than that. Kevin Love is 6'8". That is enough to put him in C tier. His release is great. He's got a good fade. He's not even a horrible playmaker, but he's not unbelievably fast, and he's 6'8". That's not going to cut it. Kevin McHale's really good, but also has a janky release. He's a free dark matter, and he's a good one, but his release is definitely janky, and that does hold him back a little bit. It's not horribly bad, though, and it is pretty smooth and easy to green, I think, so I'm going to go B tier for him. Obviously, KP is S tier, as a 7'3" absolute sniper with pretty decent athletic ability, and like his playmaking-wise isn't the best at power forward, but he's very similar to Bol Bol in a lot of ways. Not as good of a playmaker, but a little more size and defense. Really good card. Kwame Brown is the only 6'10" power forward in the game that I think cracks the S tier, and it's because I absolutely love his release. release, and I think number one also has really good SIGs, and I think defends very, very effectively. I really like Kwame a lot. I think he's low S tier, but I do think he deserves an S tier spot, and that is where we're going to put him. Marcus Saul is fine, not incredible. Good non-gambling power forward, but like his release could be a little better. He's honestly maybe a little more effective at center. He's more of a playmaker. He doesn't have much playmaking ability in general, honestly. Like, he's a good card, but he's like, oh, man, is he really C tier at this point? I think he's as good as Chet. I'm moving Chet down. I'm moving Chet down because we're coming off of Miles Turner, and I really like Miles Turner. So we're going to put Miles Turner in the B tier. Release is super good on him. Defends his butt off. Doesn't quite have the athleticism. I mean, Marcus Saul is a good dunker, but he doesn't have a great speed. And I think Miles Turner's a pretty good dunker, too. Like, this Miles Turner card's a little slept on. He was a really good card from All-Star Weekend that not a ton of people got and used, I don't think, but he was a really, really good option. Nate Thurmond is S tier. He is an absolute stud. There's no doubt about it in my mind. He's a little bit bigger version of a Kwame Brown, basically. Very similar elite playmaking ability with really, really great release and a ton of defensive ability, and he's like an inch taller as well. I think he's really good. I think he's one of the best power forwards in the game, and I think S tier is totally fair. Patrick Ewing is very mediocre because his release is horrific, and I still think he's probably D tier, C tier, because I take him over a guy. I'm moving Boogie down because Boogie is mid. I'm moving DeMar. Oh no, I'm leaving Dwight in. It's just not bad though. I'm leaving it like this. I think Boogie's got to be moved down though. If I have to move somebody down, maybe the 6'8" Love. Yeah, 6'8" Love's got to be moved down as well. This is what I'm going with because I want Ewing to be in C tier because yes, his release is bad, but he's a great defender and he actually has some decent playmaking and a lot of size. Like I think he's pretty good. Pau Gasol is not very good, not a good release, but also not a good playmaker. Not unbelievably fast, not super athletic. Like just doesn't do anything particularly special at the power forward position. Shaq has the worst release of any 100 overall in the game, and that solid legitimately puts him as like a mid to low B tier guy to me, despite being 100 overall, because his release is so atrociously bad. I would not trust this card to shoot in the slightest, and so for me, that's a killer. And I mean, I almost want to put him C tier. I really do, but I think I'm going to go low B. Tim Duncan is without a doubt the best power forward in the game. They gave him Patty Mills base. It's so stupid. I hate that 2K is now making the gambling cards even better and the 100 overalls and the unattainable ones even glitchier and even better. Like Patty Mills base on Tim Duncan is so dumb, and this card is the best power forward in the game without a doubt. Psycho T, Tyler Hansbrough, super solidly B tier. I like this card. He defends good for a 6'9", dude, and his release is awesome with great playmaking for a power forward. I would honestly argue him A tier. I got to move somebody A tier. It's going to be Chris Bosh. Bosh is getting moved back up to A tier. And I think that's how we're going to finish this out because Wilt, honestly, to me, is worse than all the other B tier guys at power forward specifically. He's like a worse version of Shaq because he does not have the shooting ability at a high level, and that's something that, to me personally, with how I want my power forwards to play is super important. If that's not important to you, you're much more viable there. But to me, I want my power forwards to pop at a high level, and that's not really Wilt's strength without an elite release nor a super high three ball or anything along those lines. So I think honestly at power forward he's probably C. At center he's probably still A or B because of his size, length, and defensive ability. And if you like Wilt more, I understand that. But that is where we're going to call this tier list. I hope y'all did enjoy. I hope y'all don't disagree with too many of my takes. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more 2K content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.